Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. Today, I'm going to talk about oil, crude, WTI, USO, whatever your way to play oil. I'm sure it's had an interesting few weeks, and today, today is one of those days where it's on the tips of everybody's tongue. It's one of the conversations on the street. Just the magnitude of the move lower has really, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise and setting up some interesting action over the next few weeks. That's for sure. So, not everybody follows oil on a day-to-day basis, myself included. It's something maybe more of like a passive interest, in the sense that you might follow some energy stocks, and in the sense that it influences those names, you care about it, but maybe not follow the actual commodity itself. And it really takes a lot, I feel like, to get in the to make like headlines in oil. Occasionally it'll maybe go on like a nice run, or pull back a bit, catch people's attention. But I mean, to be like the focus of so many traders at one time, it really has to have quite a move, and clearly it has. The last month has been pretty remarkable. And the question is, what the heck happened, right? Just a little over a month ago, the conversation on Wall Street, and the reason I know is just because I was following it at the time, is that oil was ready for a move into the 80s or 90s. Some analysts were talking about $100 a barrel, and now after today's washout. So this is the USO chart. It's not the exact crude, but so after today's washout, WTI is trading in the mid 50s. It broke below a kind of a key level at 60, and now it's in the mid 50s, down almost 7% for the day. And the current losing streak, which I believe is about 11 or 12 sessions, is actually the longest in the history of the contract, over 35 years. So it really remarkable development, considering where we were just, like I said, about a month ago. And it turned around very, very, very quick. And again, it's like, what happened? What's causing all this? Well, I guess there's a few things that you can kind of pinpoint. First off, being not technical but fundamental. The supply is still really high, so U.S. is pumping at a record still. U.S. kind of ramped up production as oil started to move higher. A lot of names were coming back online. Stuff that got shelved when oil was lower started to come back online as oil got higher. Also, a lot of people were anticipating Iranian oil supply being off the market, but that's still on the market, and that's I was reading about a million barrels that people weren't just anticipating being there. So, what had been forecast as kind of like a shortage in supply ended up being an overabundance of supply. So it just kind of like spiraled real quick. And second, the risk-off move. So, what's interesting is that the selling really came about in October, right? And October was a kind of a risk-off period for a lot of assets. So hedge funds, a lot of selling, right? Saw it in stocks, but also hedge funds were hedge funds that were long WTI, that were long oil, just kind of risk off selling across the board. So it was like indiscriminate. They were selling stocks, but they were also selling bonds, and they were selling energy too. So it kind of crept up. It was selling that started maybe as supply numbers were a little bit above what people were expecting, and then when the risk off environment hit the hedge funds, and that contributed to it, and then it turned into the third is a technical move, right? There's this really steady trend for the year, had just been nice kind of peaks and troughs, and then peak and trough, and over and over again. And the 100-day had just been a perfect area of support on it all year. And it lost that, but it was fine. I mean, it lost it, but it wasn't really cracking. But then once it took out the 200-day, which you can see, it's just falling apart like really, really, really fast. And I mean, now it's kind of like a strange predicament where uh, people have been completely caught off guard, and now, you know, going into this OPEC meeting. So, well, I'll talk about it in a minute. So, going into this OPEC meeting, people were expecting, possible addition to supply, and now they're thinking about that they're going to have to cut supply just to like rescue it. And technically, I mean, oil is incredibly oversold. Longest losing streak is basically in history. Um, But what you're going to notice is that it basically is at a critical point. So it's lost a lot of its weekly levels, and it's now like slightly through its 100 period weekly. So really, it really needs to bounce almost immediately. Otherwise, there could still be like another like 10 to 20% lower here. Um, Even after the magnitude of the move, I mean, it's just blowing through key level after key level after key level, and just keeps triggering like these sell orders that keep hitting. So you can see that this is a weekly chart that it's really important that it bounces soon. Otherwise, I mean, each time it's failed at 12, you can see that it's ended up kind of getting down to like the 10 area, which is from here about 10 to 20%. So going back to OPEC, so what's on the radar? So obviously oil. Each week you get the inventory number. So tonight's inventory number is going to be even more important just because of the magnitude of the move lower, right? So you have a couple inventory numbers due out. But then on December 6th is the OPEC meeting. And now that's like the I don't want to say it was going to be a quiet meeting, but the expectations really weren't anything substantial going into it. But now, after the magnitude of this move down, that OPEC meeting is really shaping up to be a pretty big event. Um, I was just looking at options, which let me pull it up right now. So I was just looking at that USO options, and implied volatilities have really ratcheted higher. Would you see this is the December 7th contract, which goes out through that OPEC meeting. You can see, look at the implied volatility here of the calls. Even like the puts is almost twice the historic level. I mean, the volatility, the implied volatility is really rocketed higher here. And, going into that OPEC meeting, so about 2.5 weeks away, I mean, it's pricing in about a 10% move. So, I mean, that's not massive, but I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of gradually starts working higher as people, they start to focus on this and realize that the magnitude of the move is going to lead to like probably a pretty volatile event. But yeah, let's go back to the chart. So um, what I also noticed is kind of a parallel, and it's a little bit scary, but it's kind of a parallel to what happened uh, over the OPEC meeting in 2014. So let me show you this. So you can see like this move in USO here, right? Now it started right at the beginning of October and is lasting through November. Now if we go back to 2014, there was some selling, right? So we had some selling that like rolled over, but what you really saw was the selling picked up momentum, right? You can see right here. I mean, you can see that like it started to roll over at the end of August, right? So September it was heavy, but the magnitude of the selling and the slope really started to steepen in October, which is right here. It slid straight through October and into November, right? Into like the OPEC meeting. So this was the OPEC meeting right here in November. It was on Thanksgiving, or the day after Thanksgiving, excuse me. And OPEC didn't cut, and what you can see was it just collapsed after that. So it's starting to draw like a pretty similar parallel to that. I mean, this was back when oil was much higher. It was in the 70s, 80s. But in terms of like the setup in USO, I mean, you can see like steady sliding from the start of October. We're getting to the middle of November, and as the days wear down ahead of this OPEC meeting, we're the chances of like a major bounce are starting to dwindle. So if USO can't really rally, I mean, we could be setting up like one of these scenarios where we just get like another blow off move if OPEC doesn't really get its act together and like fix the slide, right? I was just starting to notice it. It wasn't something that I was trading, but it's starting to really become interesting. And now with OPEC kind of entering the orbit, the OPEC meeting entering orbit, I think it's something worth watching. So I wanted to spend this video just kind of talking about it, put it on people's radar. Highlighting like the magnitude of this move and the ratcheting up of implied volatility and how like we really could be shaping up some serious volatility over the next few weeks in crude, USO, XLE, a lot of like these energy names. All right, guys. As always, love to hear from you. Questions, comments, reach out. Earnings, retail earnings are going to get firing off here. So, already got some big reports. Home Depot this morning, great report, mixed reaction. I'm hoping for better moves than that. But with Macy's tomorrow will be a big one. So we'll see how that goes. So, hope you guys have a fantastic night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.